Allow me now to introduce you to a true pioneer. This woman earned her first degree from Cambridge in the 1930s. By 1944, she moved to Montreal, expecting to stay only a year, but she never left. With immense determination and, as she puts it, intense curiosity, she has spent her career investigating the mysteries of the human brain. Working with the legendary Dr. Wilder Penfield, she challenged conventional wisdom and wound up creating an entirely new field, neuropsychology. Meet Dr. Brenda Milner, considered by many to be the world's foremost expert on memory. Brenda Milner was a Cambridge graduate when she and her husband came to Montreal from England in 1944. Milner initially taught psychology at the University of Montreal, but in 1950, she was enticed to McGill's psychology department by the arrival of Donald Hebb. Hebb secured for Milner a research opportunity at the Montreal Neurological Institute, working with the legendary Dr. Wilder Penfield.
That was June 1950, and of course as soon as I set foot here, I got so excited by it that I knew this is what I wanted to do.
Milner's job would be to study and test Penfield's patients before and after surgery that removed part of one temporal lobe, a new operation done to alleviate epileptic seizures. Dr. William Feindel later became a member of that surgical team.
The preoperative testing, which she did, if she found the patient already had a memory deficit, we had to be much more careful with our removal at surgery because of that. So it was a very important and valuable collaboration in that sense.
I had become very, very interested. I was very well read about animal work and so on, and I had become very interested in the temporal lobes of the brain and you know, how they might work on the basis of studies in monkeys. And so I had definite ideas I wanted to try out. I'm going to show you a group of faces, photographs of faces, and I want you to study them carefully so that you can remember them. So therefore, I thought I will look for some, this is for my PhD, I will look for some visual perceptual deficits, and I will have a hypothesis that I might see this more strongly from the right side than from the left. Hebb didn't really, but he thought I was being a bit daring suggesting that.
By 1952, Milner had accumulated enough evidence to demonstrate mild deficits on certain perceptual tasks, mainly after surgery on the right temporal lobe, less so on the left. Her hunch was right.
And, you know, I had to fight to get this accepted because they were subtle and because nobody really had this faith in the right hemisphere. I had this interest in the right hemisphere.
But what Milner did next would change the course of her career.
You know, patients would come to me, and especially the ones with left-sided lesions, and they would say, oh, I have such trouble with my memory. And I wasn't there to study memory, you know.
But she listened and observed.
If a patient comes to you and says, I have trouble with my memory, you should not reply, and I didn't. You shouldn't say, don't talk to me about memory. I'm here to study perception, or I'm here to study the motor system. Don't want to know about memory. You should be very quiet as a mouse, and you should listen, and you should say, what kind of memory? And, well, if this is what the patient feels is wrong with them after this surgery or after this epilepsy, I should study memory, you know? And so from then on, because the patients said they had memory trouble, I switched the focus of my research to memory.
She got very hooked onto this idea of memory and developed her own tests and her own techniques for working out the details of these memory things.
Milner was concerned and challenged by the unexpected outcome in two patients who had developed severe memory impairment after what had become a standard procedure for temporal lobe epilepsy.
So Hebb had supported me for 1 year on his own funds, and I'd given up my tenured position at the U of M. Hebb thought I was really foolish. And I didn't know what I was going to do at the end of the 1 year. But then when we ran into this memory problem, Penfield came to me and said, we need you. You have to come. And he found me a little office at the Neuro and so on. But neither Hebb nor Penfield gave me a penny for anything. If I wanted to do a test, I had to photocopy something, and I really had no money.
Milner pursued her methodical testing of Penfield's patients, and in 1955, Penfield and Milner presented their findings on post-surgical memory loss to the American Neurological Association. It caught the attention of a Connecticut neurosurgeon whose patient, known as HM, had suffered a profound and permanent loss of recent memory after a surgical procedure. Milner was asked to study HM, which she did over a period of several years, though HM never remembered her from one visit to the next.
I think one of the characteristics of Dr. Milner is her methodical, persistent, and very well-organized testing of these patients.
It was one such test, the mirror drawing test, that revealed to Dr. Milner evidence that the human brain had more than one memory system.
For all of us, you or me today, whenever you get to the point of the star where you have to change direction, your hand does this kind of thing, but then by doing, not by telling yourself what you ought to be doing, but just by doing in some way, by practice, you gradually improve and you keep a nice smooth line, and at the end it's beautiful. That is what you and I would do. But it's also what HM did. HM, over the 3 days that I tested him, and I have a lovely learning curve for this, that he got better and better, and he was doing beautifully at the end. And he had absolutely no recollection of the 3 days training he'd done on this. It was, that one trial was unique to him, experience, and he was proud of himself that he had done it so well. No recollection at all of all that had gone before. And it was this dissociation, between his total lack of, between what he was aware of and what he had achieved, that was to me very exciting. If anybody asked me, the really exciting moment, it was actually then, looking with my eyes very wide at this going on. And this was early evidence that there's more than one learning and memory system in the brain,
Milner's insightful analysis of HM's memory deficit is known today to just about every first-year psychology student, notes David Coleman, director of the MNI.
She's been able to take essentially a single patient, this fellow HM, and by asking the right questions, tease out the fundamentals of memory in a way that no one did previously.
Milner's discoveries in the 1950s began attracting new students and postdoctoral fellows, and at long last, some research funding.
Here you have a pack of cards, and there are 4 key cards in front of you. And what I want you to do...
In the 1960s, Milner turned her attention to the frontal lobes of the brain.
Where you think it should go. And I will tell you whether
she used the Wisconsin card sorting task to reveal a particular deficit among patients with frontal lobe lesions.
Okay, go ahead. That's wrong. No, you can't change it.
Oh, I can't change it.
You just learn from it.
Okay.
What the frontal patients were doing is going on repetitively doing this thing which was incorrect. Even though they were being told wrong, they were not shifting.
This test revealed that damage to the frontal lobes affects a person's ability to adapt to change, more so from damage to the left frontal lobe than the right.
This is the work that I had the most difficulty getting published, because the whole climate of the time was to play down the frontal lobes. This is very hard to imagine today, but it was in the 60s, 1964. And I had more trouble getting this work published than anything, and yet it has been very influential. So I'm quite proud of that, actually.
The thread running through Brenda Milner's research has been the complementarity of the left and right hemispheres of the brain. When she started her research career, conventional wisdom said that the right hemisphere was a bit of a spare tire. That didn't ring true with Milner, and she pursued a methodical testing of patients to reveal the unique functions of the right hemisphere.
Standing up in New York at Eastern psychology meetings with these wolves, this is where, this was I didn't have to fight Dr. Penfield about being a woman or anything. I never had to fight because I was a woman, but the fact that I was daring to claim something for the right hemisphere in New York with this crowd of eager, self-confident young psychologists and their professors was tough, but I believed it, I believed my observations,
So Brenda is an extremely clear thinker, and she's very persuasive. When she's convinced of something, she can argue very effectively on the behalf of whatever she's convinced of. And she's also an extremely keen observer. So you make that combination, and you have a formidable scientist.
Milner's many research breakthroughs were so groundbreaking that they led to the establishment of an entirely new discipline within the field of psychology.
She's often given credit for establishing what we call clinical neuropsychology, that is, psychology directed toward patient care and understanding patients' behavior, as being one of the individuals who have been largely responsible for developing that field. And if you look at many hospitals all over the world, the individuals who are doing patient testing and examination of patients from a psychological point of view have been trained here at the Neurological Institute by Brenda and her successive team who've followed her.
Her contributions to memory probably would not have been done by anybody else. And I think that's her uniqueness. You know, she's recognized as you know, the world's authority on memory.
At 90 years of age, Brenda Milner is still actively pursuing her research and passionately sharing her experience with students and faculty.
So I suppose more than any single finding, I look around our group, our cognitive neuroscience group is really big, and I look around the people around the world who trained here with me and with my younger colleagues, and I think I'm proudest of that, you know.
If it weren't for Brenda Milner, using this unique model that she recognized was a unique model, we would know much less about memory, the psychology of memory, than we do today.
Wrong. Wrong.